Without further ado, though, we do want to get started with our interview with Angela Mason, and I am not doing this interview. We have 8 youngsters who have joined us in the studio thanks to Stop the Violence Prayer Chain and Doc Pritchett. We have a lot of guests here in the studio with us tonight, so I'm going to let you guys get started. And just like we talked about, we're going to start here, and you're going to say your name, and if you would like to say how old you are, you can say how old you are as well, okay? So you want to start for me?
I'm Kasaya and I'm 8 years old.
Okay, thanks, Kasaya.
My name is Jemiah and I'm 10 years old.
Thank you, Jemiah.
My name's Kayla.
How old are you? Oh, you don't have to say it if you want to. Thanks, Kayla. Go ahead.
I'm Kanaya and I'm 10 years old.
Hi, Kanaya.
Hello.
I didn't meet you earlier. What's your name?
Malik.
We were all commenting on how sharp your shoe is, Malik. You look very nice.
Very sharp.
So do you have to pass the microphone back?
I'm Naya, I'm 13 years old.
Hi, Naya.
I'm Isaiah and I'm 14 years old.
I'm Kayla and I'm 16 years old.
Hi, Kayla. Okay, so we talked a little bit earlier about what NASA is and why Ms. Shauna is so excited that Angela's here. But before we get started, I would like to ask Angela just to tell our audience a little bit about what you do, and then you guys have all been thinking of good questions, so then we'll go from there, okay? Sounds good. Go ahead, Angela.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me here.
You're very welcome.
This is an honor.
This is an honor for us. I'm really happy you're here.
I'm excited to be here. I am a mission manager at NASA. I'm an engineer, but now I'm more into project management. I'm a mission manager for some future satellite missions that will launch like 2020 and beyond. Satellite missions are spacecraft, but it's the unmanned spacecraft. This spacecraft, we don't need astronauts in, so I work on the unmanned spacecraft, which are satellite missions.
Okay. All right, well, I'm going to open the questions up to you guys. Who has a question for Ms. Oh, my, okay. All right, Angela, I'll let you pick.
How about, what is your name again?
Kasaya.
Hi, Kasaya.
When you go to the moon, are you able to like touch things with your hands without the gloves? Or?
Well, I'm not an astronaut, but I do have some colleagues and friends that are astronauts, and also too, like I mentioned earlier, I don't work on like a space shuttle. I work on satellite spacecraft, still spacecraft, but the astronauts don't go on my spacecraft. But the astronauts actually have to use certain type of gloves, and they are able to touch instruments and hardware when they're in space.
So they can't touch anything with just their bare hands?
No, they can't touch anything with their bare hands.
What about inside? Inside they
Yeah,
can?
they can,
Okay.
yes.
Go ahead, Jemiah.
So since you have your own spacecraft, does it mean that you could order your own food and stuff?
Well, I don't really have my own spacecraft. I'm working on some future spacecraft.
So you can't eat in space?
But the astronauts, they do eat in space. They have certain types of food prepared for them.
You
and
can't
they
eat
do.
fried chicken?
No, they can't take like regular fried chicken, but they do have a way of condensing into some type of food product. And I believe they do have different flavors. They have, like they can have steaks and different meals, but it's just in a different form.
Who
But
else had a
Does it
question?
taste good?
I'm sure it tastes good to them.
Did
Go
you
ahead,
bring
sweetie.
like any of the food to show us what it looks like?
I didn't bring anything about. I didn't.
I didn't
She
ask her
didn't ask
to.
you
I
to.
didn't ask her to bring anything
Well, I
with
could have
her.
brought some of the space packs, but if you ever visit NASA, I will make sure that you get to see all that.
Which is actually not out of the question because remember we had a trip planned and then it got rained out.
Yep.
So we were going to take a group to where Angela Mason works, but it didn't work out. So maybe this time we can, and it won't be a weather issue. But go ahead with your question, sweetheart.
Is there seafood there?
Is there seafood there?
You guys must really like.
Are
to
you all
eat, 'cause
hungry?
we
Is
were
that what it
talking
is?
a lot about food. As I said, I believe they have a way of getting some of their favorite meals into the type of format it needs to be for them to be able to partake in space.
No, I can't live without crabs.
Without crabs.
Let's let Malik ask a question, okay? Can you pass him the mic?
How come you have to take helmets to space?
Well, they have to protect themselves from any, we call it debris, which is, they're not sure what could be flying around, so they have to protect themselves. That's why they have to have certain space suits on and certain equipment and helmets. So it's just to protect them so that they won't get any head injuries or any damage.
Okay. Naya, do you have a question?
What do you find most rewarding about working at NASA?
Wow.
I'm going to repeat her question, okay?
Okay.
Her question was, what do you find most rewarding about working at NASA?
Well, I guess the most rewarding for me is that we're working on a lot of new technology that's never been worked on before. So it's always exciting, even when you might have a bad day at work, because of the type of work you're working on is always makes it exciting. So that's probably the most exciting.
Thank you.
Isaiah, do you have a question?
Where is NASA located?
Well, NASA has 10 different facilities. The one I work at is in Maryland, in Greenbelt, Maryland, called the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. But there's one in Hampton, Virginia, where I used to work, called NASA Langley Research Center. And then there's 2 centers in California. There's one in Ohio. There's one in Mississippi, in Alabama, and Ohio. Did I mention Ohio? And NASA headquarters is in Washington, D.C. And it seems like I'm missing. But we have 10 centers, so that way, you know, you don't, if you want to work for NASA, you have a lot of options. Florida. At the Kennedy Space Center, that's where
How could we forgot about
I
that
know.
one?
Oh, and also Houston, where
Oh, yeah, I know,
where
right?
actually the mission
Yeah.
center, where they. So the Kennedy Space Center is where the space shuttles used to take off, and the Johnson Space Center is where the mission operations, where they actually communicate with the astronauts, and that's in Texas.
I think everyone here is too little to remember or understand how significant the space shuttles were for us. Because when we were growing up, at first, when space shuttles went into space, explain this correctly for me. When they went up, what was the thing about the space shuttle, the way it landed? It came back and it landed just like an airplane would. And that was such a big deal for us because we weren't used to seeing that. It was like an airplane. It was just an airplane. Yeah, it wasn't just a rocket. It was so fascinating. Did you have a question, sweetheart?
When you were younger, did you always want to work for NASA?
No, I actually didn't really know about NASA, which this is a great opportunity for you guys because, you know, because we don't have a NASA in Delaware, sometimes it's kind of far removed. So I just want to thank God that He allowed me to work at NASA, to be able to share with, well, for my hometown. But no, but I always liked math. That's where the technology part started. I love math, and at the time when I was in high school, computers were that was the big thing, you know, being into computers. And so when I was in high school, which I went to Howard Career Center, and I majored in data processing, that's where my focus was mathematics and computer science. But I ended up working at NASA Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia, which is how I kind of got into engineering, because I worked, I guess I should back up a little bit. I went to Hampton University undergrad, and Hampton University was very close to the NASA facility in Hampton, Virginia. And there were a lot of actually minority engineers that would come and speak to the students. And that's how I really got exposed to engineering. I didn't get exposed to engineering when I was here, you know, in Delaware.
Okay.
He was first.
Okay, Malik, go ahead.
How do they build
The spacecraft.
the spacecraft?
How do they build it?
How do they build the spacecrafts?
Well, it's a lot. It takes a lot of people. It's a lot of sections involved in it. You know, you have your, you have your electronics, you have your, your avionics, you have your hardware, your software. I mean, it's just a lot of engineers that's involved that actually come together to help design the spacecraft. And then there's a lot of people that, like myself, which is a mission manager, and also program managers and reviewers that actually have to, listen to what their drawings are, or what they're coming up with, to make sure that it's adequate. So I guess it just takes a lot of people and a lot of time to build a spacecraft,
And it sounds like it takes a lot of teamwork.
and a lot of teamwork.